My name is Peter. I used to stream on Twitch. I played many types of games and my streams consistently got over 20,000 viewers every day. It took many years to get to where I was and I really enjoyed it. That was until the Christmas event I held on my stream last year, which has shaken me to my core and left me wondering if I'd ever stream again. It was 8 p.m. and I was going to play FORTNITE with randomly chosen subscribers from the chat. I wanted to do something special for Christmas Day and the positive response was immediate. The event began successfully. I played a few matches with a guy around my age and then with a girl who had just finished high school. The stream took a frightening turn while playing with the third subscriber of the day, a 12-year-old kid named Rico. We were quite silent early on. However, in the middle of our game, his voice was interrupted by the sound of shattering glass, booming through the headset. "Is everything alright?" I asked. Rico told me that something probably broke in his kitchen and that he'd go check. I heard the muffled sound of him taking off his headset before he then picked it back up and placed it on his head about a minute later.
"Peter,"
he whispered.
"there is a strange man inside my house and he is going upstairs towards my parents' room."
The anxiety in Rico's voice convinced me that he wasn't lying. I could practically hear the tears forming in his eyes. I didn't know how to react. There was a kid experiencing perhaps a life-threatening situation live on my stream. I closed down FORTNITE, yanked my hand away from the mouse, and then focused on Rico's voice. Doing my part to help the young boy as much as I could was all that mattered. I asked him, "Rico, you need to call the police immediately. Is there a phone nearby?" He told me that the phone was in the kitchen where he had heard the initial sounds and was too scared to go. I told him I'd call the police for him if he'd give me his address, and then asked him to go find a place to hide. The distant scream of a woman erupted in my headset. The scream sounded painful. For the next few moments, all I could hear were sniffles and the sound of Rico sliding under his bed. I quickly looked up the number for the police station in his city and dialed it. I told Rico that a police officer was on his way and that he needed to stay hidden until they arrived. He then told me,
"Thank you, Peter. I always knew that we would be friends."
Before I could respond to the touching remark, several screams bursted through the headset. The screams seemed to go on for an eternity, and then all of a sudden, my headset went completely silent. A few moments later, the dispatcher's voice sounded through the phone, telling me that the officer had arrived and Rico was now safe. That was a big relief. Rico was saved, but both his parents suffered from assault injuries. Apparently, the intruding man had heard the police sirens and jumped out of one of the windows before getting caught by the officer. I was deeply traumatized that night and still get flashbacks once in a while. It was my biggest stream, and yet, it scared me for life. I haven't posted anything since, and to this day, still wonder if I ever will. When I was a child, my mom and I moved to a new neighborhood close to our relatives. It was nearing Christmas, and it made sense to move there sooner since we'd celebrate during the holidays. My mom was a single parent. She couldn't afford a large house, so she took the best that was available. The house was truly the perfect fit for our small family. Truthfully, things were great for a while. I remember having Christmas at the house with our family all gathered around in our small living room. But then, things started to get, well, kind of weird. The neighbor to the right of our house was an elderly man named Mr. Brown, who lived alone. I only remember meeting him one time when we first moved in. I had walked by his house and he was in his bedroom window. He was just standing there, staring. He was wearing boxer shorts and holding a cane in his hand. A twisted smile appeared on his face. He stood there sickly smiling at me, puffing out his cigarette. I didn't think it could be anything, so I just tried to forget about the creepy man. One morning, me and my mom woke up to find open cupboards and cabinets in the kitchen. Every single one of them. We looked at each other, scratching our heads, and both asked each other simultaneously, "Why did you do that?" Of course, neither of us did. After that day, our cupboards just couldn't stay closed. This turned into a morning routine. Get up, make breakfast, close the cupboards, and go to school. But then it started being other things too. A few days later, we woke up to find all 4 of our dining room table chairs placed in the living room. It looked like someone had moved them during the night. My mom took a deep breath and put them back at the table, desperate to try and understand what was happening. I was only 10 years old at the time, but I remember hearing my mom talk on the phone later that night. She talked about seeing an old man in her bedroom window during her recurring nightmares. A wrinkly face that visited her almost every night. The face would appear and scowl at her. She would then hide under the covers until the next morning. She mentioned that even though it was just a dream, it always felt so real. She felt half awake every time it happened. Things only got worse from there on out. The next evening, we came home late and the entire house reeked of smoke. It wasn't the smell of something burning. It was the smell of cigarettes. While walking around the house, my mom and I found my toys in the living room. All of them. They were perfectly arranged in stacks. My mom asked me when I had moved the toys, but I told her that I hadn't moved anything. That's when we went upstairs to my bedroom. In the corner where I kept my toys, my mom found an old pair of boxer shorts and a wooden cane. My mom fell to her knees and bursted into tears. It was the same shorts and cane the man wore in her nightmares. She asked me reluctantly if I knew who the shorts and cane belonged to. I told her I saw Mr. Brown wearing those all the time. My mom paused and slowly turned her head to look me dead in the eyes. At that moment, she understood. The nightmares she was having were the actual reality. Mr. Brown was creeping inside our house during our sleep and haunted my mother's soul for weeks. We packed all our essentials and slept at a hotel room that night. A few days later, we were all packed out and living with my grandma. I've never heard back of Mr. Brown, and my mom gradually stopped having nightmares. No wonder that house had been sold 4 times in the past 3 years. Christmas was a week away. I had been helping my mom around the house as we had my grandparents staying over. They visited us here for my 13th birthday, but as Christmas was approaching, they had decided to stay longer for the holidays. During the day, we usually had a lot of guests over and each of them brought a bunch of presents. They placed them under the Christmas tree for us to open them on Christmas morning. The pile grew bigger and bigger with each passing day and I was very excited. A few days before Christmas, I was sitting in the living room when I noticed that the big red box present was gone, along with the well-packed blue glitter one. I assumed my mom had taken some of them away as we were running out of space under the tree. Days went by and Christmas was only a few days away. I noticed that the presents were not where they were initially placed. There seemed to be more room and the base of the tree looked less and less packed. It confused me because we usually kept all the gifts under the tree. Again, I didn't really question it much and thought my mom was just placing them elsewhere as it took a lot of space in the living room. Later that evening, my mom asked me,
"Sam, did you take away the presents from under the tree? I told you they are only to be open on Christmas Day."
I stared at her in shock. I was quite confused. "No, Mom. I thought you had put them away," I replied. My mom knew I never lied. She shook her head and said,
It must be your dad. Never mind."
I went to bed early that evening and woke up in the middle of the night. My throat felt dry and I wasn't able to go back to sleep. Despite my laziness, I went downstairs to grab a drink. While pouring some water in a glass, I heard a sudden scratching noise coming from the living room. That felt strange since my parents never stayed up that late. It was when I curiously entered the living room that my heart skipped a beat. I saw the silhouette of a figure standing near the Christmas tree. A tall man, quickly shoving presents in a bag. I gasped as I saw him make eye contact with me. Without wasting a second, I ran up to my parents' bedroom screaming and banged heavily on their door. They came out in a hurry, asking me what was happening. I told them that there was a man in the living room stealing the presents. My father quickly grabbed the baseball bat under the bed and went downstairs. The intruder had escaped, as the front door was open and all the presents were gone. We informed the police, and to our surprise, we weren't the only ones to report about stolen presents. It had actually happened to 3 other families of our neighborhood that week. The police caught the suspect about a week after Christmas, but the presents were nowhere to be found. Thankfully, the city organized a fundraiser for our families, and I was grateful to receive a few belated Christmas presents. I didn't get the guitar I wanted, but the whole situation made me realize how lucky and privileged I was to live memorable moments with my family during the holidays. Do you have a true, personal, scary story to share? Send your 500 to 600 word horror story to goosebumpsterofficial@gmail.com. Please make sure you have well-structured sentences and grammar. Also, let us know how you would like your name to be credited on the video. Terrorize the like button and subscribe to the channel if you dare. I'll see you soon.